Andrew Johns has won it all in rugby league last night, adding to his trophy cabinet. The only trouble, Johns is running out of room.
You must have a very full trophy cabinet by now.
They're actually in my underpants drawer, so they're pretty safe there. No one will go near them.
Okay.
Meanwhile, concerns over brother Matthew's right thigh in the lead-up to Saturday's semi against the Storm have eased. The 5'8" now close to peak fitness.
Yesterday I was still sort of running only at lucky to be half speed, but today I'm getting close to stride now at 100%, so I won't have any problems whatsoever.
Making his return to the top grade at the right end of the season is Darren Albert, at the expense of the in-form Lenny Beckett. The speedster has only played a handful of first-grade games this year, but is confident the injury woes are behind him. Once again, fans have snapped up tickets for the marathon clash. 10,000 sold today, another 8,000 remaining. Blake Doyle, NBN News. More than 200 people turned out for last night's meeting, all of them angry over skyrocketing effluent disposal rates. In 1997, YE's 700-odd ratepayers paid $842 a year to have waste pumped from their homes. It's now just under $1,300, and it's feared that could rise to above $1,540 or $30 a week.
There's a large population of pensioners in the area, and it's just going up that much that it's getting out of the question.
Sewage pump-out costs have risen as more and more houses across Lake Macquarie are hooked up to the sewerage system.
It's just a ridiculous situation, and we've got to find a way around that.
The Lake Council has 2 years left on a 5-year contract with Cleanaway for effluent disposal and is looking at all options to appease residents.
Perhaps we should be looking at smaller contractors and working out a system with them, trying to reduce overheads and allowing them to administer that.
Locals say the answer lies in being joined to the sewerage system at an estimated cost of between $4 and $6 million. Hunter Water says that won't happen soon.
I think the decision will have to be a political one. It can't be a straight economic one.
Blake Doyle, NBN News. After 9 seasons with one of Australia's most dominant sides in Sydney Olympic, Peter Sekenis comes to Newcastle with a healthy CV. The 27-year-old has captained his old club and was part of Australia's Olympic campaign in Barcelona. Describing himself as a creative midfielder, Sekenis likes nothing more than to control the play. A big draw card for him, the possibility of playing with Andy Harper and John Bonavolia.
Andy Harper's certainly one player that I'd like to have in front of me, and obviously you mentioned Johnny, who's undoubtedly one of the quicker and more skillful strikers in the league. So, as a midfielder, you need players like in front of you. It makes you look good and helps the team do well.
Sekenis is also joined in the midfield by former Wollongong player Anthony Surgeon. In limbo after the Wolves' NSL final victory, Surgeon is happy to head north.
Definitely, yeah. Looking to just miss out in the 6 last year, and they're a young side, so hopefully they'll get hungrier and we'll cement a spot in the 6 this season, yeah.
Surgeon and Sekenis have 10 weeks to meld with the side before the NSL season kicks off on October 13. Blake Doyle, NBN News.
Round 2, the Knights thrash Melbourne at Marathon Stadium. Round 13, the Storm crushes Newcastle at Olympic Park. This Saturday, the NRL finals will prove decisive in more ways than one. Ben Kennedy just one night out to settle the score.
I guess it's 1-1. You know, we gave them a bit of a touch-up and they gave us a bit of a touch-up, so it's going to be pretty interesting. You know, obviously we've got the home crowd and the home ground, so, you know, we're looking for a big one.
The big forward has taken things easy at training this week under the watchful eye of his son Bryce and looks certain to play despite that ankle injury. Meanwhile, retiring skipper Tony Butterfield has taken time to meet the club's youngest member, 4-week-old Samuel Lethbridge. And perhaps the Knights should keep an eye on their fledgling fan, born just over 4.5 kilos or 10 pounds 6 on the old scale. Samuel's sure to be future front row material. But it's the Knights' current players who concern Chris Anderson, and even though the Knights haven't won a finals match since 1997, the outspoken coach isn't about to label them chokers.
Ask me after Saturday.
The Storm flew into Sydney Airport before boarding a bus for Newcastle, players shown every sign they're entering enemy territory. Colin Baldwin, NBN News.
Interest rates are up, but that doesn't necessarily mean tools are down in the hunter. The Master Builders Association believes the high availability of land at the right price and regional assistance schemes for first home buyers should keep the local industry stable.
It probably won't have the same effect as it does nationally for the fact that we're insular insofar as I believe we've got a fair bit of work ahead of us. A recent survey of our members supported that by saying that they were fairly confident of the work they had ahead of them.
Although there is concern, the building industry and the hunter won't be able to absorb too many more interest rate increases.
This is the 5th increase in interest rates since November of last year, and I just believe that we can't have too many of these, or it will in fact affect our local economy.
As tensions cool in East Timor, so too are our troops. These soldiers gearing up for air training in the early hours at Singleton Army Camp. These paratroopers hadn't done any field training for 12 months while they were peacekeeping, and it was time to earn their wings once again. Once everyone was packed and their gear weighed, it was off to the drop zone. 5 RAAF C-130s carried troops and equipment and slowly climbed above the early morning fog. And once they reached their drop-off height, 170 troops, all their equipment, artillery and vehicles were released in a full-scale rehearsal. Once the troops' glide down to earth was complete, they found all the necessary equipment on the ground ready for military action.
We were able to deliver guns, artillery, vehicles. We were able to deliver mortars and soldiers ready to fight with all their stores from the air in a very short period of time.
The rehearsal was regarded a complete success and sees Charlie Company back up to full strength to serve Australia. The soldiers now will return to general duties. Adam Harper, NBN News.
Residents wanting to close the nearby bombing range met to discuss the Darwin mishap and Craig Leggett's tour of the Saltash facility 10 days ago.
There were only 2 out of 6 passes that I was watching where bombs actually left the aircraft and landed so that we could see where they landed. The other 3 or 4 bombs that were supposed to be released, we don't know at this stage whether they were still on the aircraft or whether they released and landed somewhere out in the never-never.
Residents say dummy bombs like this one, weighing about 20 kilos, are released from FA-18 Hornets aimed at the bombing range less than 2 kilometres from homes. They don't want to close the base, just have the firing range moved.
Who's to say those bombs that were supposed to be released on the range weren't hung up accidentally and couldn't drop off onto a house? Now, we've been told it's impossible. It's not impossible. They can drop off when the pilot doesn't expect them to, and they can do a lot of damage, as we saw this morning in Darwin.
The RAAF says it cannot comment on safety issues involving the Hornets at Williamtown, while the incident at Darwin is still to be investigated. A spokesperson for Defence Minister John Moore says the government is not interested in closing the bombing range because it is a vital part of defence policy. David McElwain, NBN News.
Neither team had reached this far in the competition, and for Dickson College it couldn't have started worse. A mistake in goal saw Francis Xavier on the attack, and a blindside raid wasn't read by Dickson College defence, and Ryan O'Connor was over. Another mistake, another try. Centre Joel Rawlings continuing his try feast in the statewide competition. Trying to turn things around, Dickson College got it all wrong. 2 on report for this tackle on Michael Small. No problems for winger Ryan Turton. He crossed untouched. Again in the left corner, and Xavier's was up 14-0. A run of penalties helped spark a home side revival, and Dickson College got back within reach after Wayne Robinson landed their first. The second half started like the first, with prop Ryan O'Connor scoring. And when Hugh Ryan raced over just minutes later, Xavier looked to have a final spot sewn up at 24-6. But an incredible comeback saw the Canberra-based college rack up 3 converted tries in less than 10 minutes. When fullback Warren Colson crossed and then converted, it was 24 all. But with Francis Xavier scoring 1 more try, it advanced to the final for the very first time. Wet weather football, always cold but rarely pretty, and today was no different in the first half. Hamilton showed few effects after backing up from an extra time effort last weekend. Corey Flipsovic coming close on 2 occasions, just desperate defence keeping him out. Maitland's frustrations were obvious. But both sides went to the break scoreless. After half-time the weather cleared, but Flipsovic broke the scoring drought, making it look easy from a set piece. Maitland's best chance of the match actually led to their downfall. Olympic catching them on the break with Flipsovic finding open spaces and another goal for a 2-0 lead. In the middle of everything, he then laid one on for Trent Austin, who struck home Olympic's third. His celebration almost as good as the finish. Fine football on the pitch, ugly scenes off them as officials heated up on a cold afternoon. But Flipsovic had the last say in a match he dominated, catching and delivering a cross straight into the net for his third. Hamilton 4-1 winners.
Boolaroo Fire Station provides a valuable service to the local community, but that service suffered a setback as a result of an early morning break-in today when thieves stole equipment and money.
They've entered through the back window into the station and just opened the door and walked out whatever they wanted.
Taken in the raid were several UHF radios as well as social funds and petty cash from the office. And the robbers didn't stop there. They used a wrecking bar to prise open and raid personal lockers. The robbery caused the station to shut down for the morning, but staff wasted no time in getting back on their feet.
Now we've got to restow the motor with all the gear they've pulled off it and try and get back to operations as soon as possible.
Meanwhile, less than a block away, workers were repairing the damage left from a robbery last week on a motorbike store. Their job got bigger this morning when they arrived to find the front shop window broken, the results of another attempted robbery. Nothing was stolen from the shop this morning as the alarm scared off the intruders. Adam Harper, NBN News.
We're trying to celebrate the work that our forebears have done in the past to make Australia what it is today, and the role that the Australian stock horse played in all of that, because without the stock horse it just wouldn't have happened.
Bulldogs. Who goes for the night? Anybody? Yeah. What a surprise. Well, I don't really go for anybody. At the moment we think it's better to invest money in other things rather than aircraft carriers because of the positioning of and the possible defence challenges.
In an increasingly environmentally conscious society, the Forest Products Association says it's about to play its part. It's proposing what it says are 100% green wood-fired power stations, one in Grafton on the mid-north coast, one on the south coast, and a third at either Bulahdelah or Singleton.
We are substituting a non-renewable resource, coal, with a totally renewable resource, timber.
That timber would be sourced from sawmills waste, offcuts and sawdust, plantation regrowth and new plantations within a 150 kilometre radius of the plant. One factor in the association's mind is the economic benefits to the chosen community. It claims 330 jobs would be created through construction, maintenance, haulage and the like.
The reality is that if you're a small country town really struggling for a future, then this is a potential gold mine.
With the Bulladila bypass issue looming, the town is certainly under more economic pressure than Singleton, depending almost solely on Highway 3 traffic.
That's a part of the economy, and before that's taken away, they would need some sort of replacement.
Despite all the claims of it being an environmentally friendly proposal, one engineer at the University of Newcastle says it's only an advantage if the timber resource is continually available. The amount of carbon released into the air is the same as coal.
As many as 1 in 5 women will develop postnatal depression after they have a child. To give doctors more information about the illness, the Hunter Institute of Mental Health has launched a new CD-ROM.
Because GPs are so busy keeping up to date with all the latest evidence that there is about treatments for all sorts of illnesses, we hope that this CD will give them all the professional tools and the knowledge they need to focus specifically on postnatal depression.
It's not always easy for GPs to recognise the symptoms. They may be as subtle as headaches and lethargy. But in some cases, the disorder can be quite severe and can impact on not only the woman herself, but on her children and her partner.
There are some women who are still experiencing symptoms of postnatal depression up to 12 months after they've had their children. So the effects can be quite long-lasting if they're not treated.
The Hunter's 600 GPs will each receive a copy of the CD-ROM. Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
It's unknown how long the palm tree had been growing in this garden in Merewether, but some residents believe that it's nearly 100 years old. And today it was time to find a new home. The land is being redeveloped and the tree was donated by the landowner to Lake Macquarie Council. Newcastle Council turned down the offer to keep the healthy tree.
Residents from within the local area or adjacent councils offer us plants that fit our requirements. We quite gladly want to transplant them to protect those mature species and enhance our environment.
A tree doctor from Sydney was contracted to remove the palm and shift it to Belmont's foreshore, using the same process that's been called on at Homebush. Once out of the ground, no time was wasted in trucking the tree along the highway. An odd sight, but a quick way of getting it to Belmont for replanting. It's all part of Council's $250,000 plan to improve the foreshore.
The next step is the seawalls and paving and the connection way of cycleways that will connect Belmont through to the projects in Greenpoint.
Adam Harper, NBN News.
We're 100% full, so that's all the market stalls gone, all the factory outlets are gone.
Riding at high speeds on a motorbike using only one wheel is usually illegal. But if there's one person who should be encouraged to keep it up, it's 26-year-old Rob Jones. After all, he's just won third place at the World Stunt Riding Championships in Canada for doing just that.
We went over just for a look, basically, to see what the other riders do and so forth, and when we got there we really thought we could make a go of this, and we had a go and a good result.
It was Jones's first ever international competition, and already he's made his mark. But it's not all about stunt riding. His passion and ability on a bike go much further.
I'm the only rider to be known in the world that can do stunt riding, trials riding and motocross riding. I'm the only rider in the world that can stay in the top three in all facets.
Although the Newcastle rider has taken to the bike like a duck to water, he realises there are some very real dangers involved.
It's very dangerous. I had a big accident just before I left to go overseas, actually. So anything can happen, everything can be going smoothly, and all of a sudden you're down on the ground because everything happens so fast.
So he's straight into training to make sure he stays in the saddle for the coming World Trial competition in Spain. Adam Harper, NBN News.
It's heartbreaking to return to your car and see a broken window, glass all over the road. But it's happening more often, according to the largest stockist of side window glass in the Hunter.
Probably in the last 3 years we've seen a major increase. This year, for instance, we're about 22% up on the previous year. 70-75% through break-ins, vandalism and break-ins.
Wreckers say the demand is causing problems, with waves of customers from the same suburb often arriving after their area has been targeted.
Particularly for the left-hand rear door quarter glass, the smallest glass that's closest to the curb, we get asked for it so many times we just run out.
Most of the victims pay for the repairs themselves and don't report it to police because there's no point claiming for the damage.
In most cases, the cost of the replacement's between $150 and $200. Most insurance policies have got an excess of about $375. So they just come and pay it and let it go.
We accept that there are people within our community that don't report crimes that are seen by those people as being more minor.
The region's senior police say they do not have resources to deploy on gathering information on crimes from other sources if they are not reported by the community.
Where intelligence suggests that this type of crime is happening, the individual local area commands, I know, are targeting the areas.
The issue of human surrogacy was brought to the fore after Dungog couple Peter and Philippa Hudson took their quest for a child to Parliament in Canberra. They want a single law governing surrogacy to be introduced to override the numerous and often conflicting state laws. Newcastle fertility expert Dr. Robert Woolcott agrees.
If there were an overriding law that clarified the situation
for initiating couples, for surrogate mothers and for doctors. I could only see that as a good thing.
Currently under the law, there's no legal protection for the genetic parents.
A couple could initiate a surrogacy arrangement. The baby would be carried by the other woman, and if she gives birth to the baby, then legally she's the mother, and therefore that leads to a situation where adoption may be necessary.
It's also currently illegal to enter into paid agreements for surrogacy. And while altruistic arrangements aren't strictly illegal, the situation is still fraught with dangers.
And they might organise the situation and then fear that the courts at some point might reverse the intention of all parties involved for one reason or another.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.
There's always time for tea in Morpeth, and for a nice hot cuppa to warm you up on these winter days, this is certainly the place. Almost 2,500 novel teapots make up the largest display of its kind in Australia.
It's really taken us 6 years to build up the contacts, and we travel right across Australia, every state and territory, to find the teapot makers that have put this collection together today.
From the all-natural clay pots from China to some of the most sought-after teapots in the world. And of course, there's the extraordinary. This Olympic-inspired creation called Zebra Crossing represents the influx of tourists to Sydney for the Games. If you're searching for the perfect cup of tea, then this is your pot. The 1929 Robur design will make sure the tea doesn't become bitter. But the future owner is unlikely to actually brew anything.
A lot of these teapots that people are buying will be purchased as a collector's item, and they'll in fact never be used. They'll simply be put on in display cabinets.
If these designs don't attract enough attention, then the works in progress may do the trick.
And for true tea lovers, when drinking that special brew just isn't enough, you can always soak in it. Brooke Webster, NBN News.